Hello and welcome to Health Live at Seniors Today. We have here with us Dr. Megha Damne, a leading neurologist and a neuromuscular specialist. A little about her. After completing her MBBS and MD medicine from the BJ Medical College in Pune, Dr. Damne went to the US to pursue residency in neurology from the Baylor College of Medicine in Texas. After that, she pursued a fellowship in neuromuscular medicine from the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. She has also worked in Singapore at the National Neurological Institute for 3 years before moving back to India in 2018. Currently, she is practicing as a neuromuscular specialist at the Dr. L.H. Hiranandani Hospital in Powai in Mumbai. Dr. Damne has started the Nerve and Muscle Clinic at the hospital and participates in the Mumbai ALS Support Group Forum. Welcome to Health Live at Seniors Today, Dr. Damne.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maheshwari, for the warm and the kind introduction. I also thank Dr. Chatterjee, Sujit Chatterjee, the CEO of Hiranandani Hospital, for giving me this opportunity for having a brief chat with you all. First of all, I wish you all a very happy Navratri, and I hope it brings colors in our lives after all the gloom and the doom of the coronavirus that we've all been going through. So I think I'll take you along in the next few minutes as to what are the warning signs of stroke, how do you recognize signs of a stroke, symptoms of a stroke, and what do we do if somebody around you has a stroke, or what is the first aid that you can give, and what can we as a multi-speciality team offer to you when you come to the hospital. So let me begin my presentation here. So, am I having a stroke is the topic of my presentation. What is a stroke? We had a World Stroke Day presentation last year, and we were talking to a few patients, and I told them that we have a presentation on stroke. Oh, I know what a stroke is. It's a heart attack. So what do you mean by a stroke is the question I asked my patients. So most of them answered that a stroke means a heart attack. That's what all of us think as a layman, correct? So, well, let me tell you, stroke is a brain attack. It's similar to a heart attack. That's why it is a medical emergency. When somebody has a heart attack, it's a medical emergency. We rush to the hospital so as to not lose time. The time starts ticking, right? So similarly, stroke is a brain attack, and we need to rush the patient around you, whoever it is, to the emergency department right away without wasting even a single minute, because time is brain. So what happens to the Western world? I want to give you a glimpse of what happens. This is Baylor College of Medicine, where I was trained as a neurologist. Let's take a scenario. A patient is in the house, and the relatives suspect that this elderly lady over here, who's lying down on the floor, is having symptoms of stroke. Now, I'll tell you later on what the symptoms of stroke are. So she was unconscious, lying on the floor, not moving her right side, and probably not talking. So what happens? The man over there is trying to call somebody, right? He's trying to call 911, which is the emergency system in the US. As soon as they call 911, a pager, you can see the symbol of a pager. A pager is sent to the hospital neurologist, the stroke physicians, the emergency department, and then the patient is on the way, the ambulance arises, they come to the emergency immediately. So such is the beauty of the healthcare system, that time is not wasted. It could also be an air ambulance, and the patient is within the emergency within 15 minutes most of the times after 911 is called. In the hospital, the team is ready, the emergency team, the neurologist, the radiologist, so as to diagnose early symptoms, early signs of acute stroke. Why? Because we need to start these patients on appropriate medicine. Now let's get back to what happens in our city, in our hospital here. This was a patient I saw last year. She was an 89 years old lady. She had a history of hypertension, which is high blood pressure. She was sitting here in Hiranandani in one of the buildings here. She lives here. She was found by a maid to be suddenly leaning on the right side with difficulty talking. So this was since roughly 11:15 a.m. Since she was very close to the hospital, she was brought immediately to the emergency at 12:30 p.m. That was very important. That was very useful and very important for her. She reached the hospital quite early. So what did we do? We did an MRI on her. The stroke team was ready for her. The radiologists were also alerted. We also have a similar stroke system in the hospital where as soon as the patient comes to the emergency, the neurologist, the emergency physicians, and the radiologists are alerted. We do not have a pager, we have a stroke alert or a phone call that goes simultaneously to all the three specialties, including the radiology technicians. So if there is a patient in the CT or the MRI, that patient is taken out and the stroke patient is given the first preference because time is brain, the clock is ticking here. So this lady received the clot buster injection. So the clot buster injection, what happens is when a stroke occurs, that means the blood vessel to the brain is blocked and that causes the infarct. What you're seeing here, this area of the brain on the left side is infarcted, meaning the blood supply to that area is cut off and that part of the brain can be, it's dead. So this patient was found to be having weakness on the right side. She could also have difficulty speaking. Now, the clot buster injection it aims to reverse these effects. The weakness will improve and the patient will not have speech difficulty anymore. That was very important. And see, despite being an elderly lady, 89, 90 years old, there is, we do not stop from these patients from receiving the injection, okay, because it is a life-saving injection. But we only can give it within 4.5 hours of the onset of symptoms. What does that mean? If somebody has a stroke, let's say this patient had a stroke, which was first started at 11:15, we can only give it to her, we can only give the injection to her within less than 4.5 hours of her onset of symptoms, because there could be a risk of bleeding since we are giving the clot buster injection. So this patient improved and she went home walking with no difficulty. Similarly, there was this another gentleman who came, 54 years old male, much younger. He had a history of hypertension since 3 years. Now this patient had left-sided weakness. He had difficulty talking, but he came to the hospital the next day morning, which was too late, beyond 4.5 hours of the onset of symptoms, and we could not give him the clot buster medication. Now, comparing the two patients, despite being a young patient, he did not get the treatment on time because he reached the hospital late. So he improved, but not immediately. He took weeks to months to improve and had to come to the hospital for physiotherapy, long-term rehabilitation, loss of office hours. He's a young male. He probably is working. So loss of, the earning days here that we are talking about, a lot of morbidity, that he went through, mental trauma, that he had weakness, the entire family is suffering, he is suffering. So a lot of things can be prevented if the patient comes to the hospital on time. Okay, so just the brief outlook as to the treatment of stroke. This is what we call as the golden time. The golden hour is 4.5 hours. This treatment was introduced in 2009, in 1996, in fact, and this graph is from 2009. Despite having had this treatment for the last 20 years plus, the awareness amongst the general public is still low that there is a treatment for acute stroke. This is what I want to emphasize in my talk, that if somebody has a stroke, if you have a stroke, if you see somebody having symptoms of stroke, please take the patient to the emergency within 4.5 hours because we can give them the treatment. So, this is what I'm practicing here as a neurologist since 2 years. For the last 10 to 12 years, I was in the US and in Singapore. And what challenges did I face after coming back to India? So, do we have a stroke team here? In fact, at Hiranandani and most of the hospitals, I would say in Mumbai and big centers in India, we have a very good stroke team. We have excellent neurologists. We have an excellent infrastructure in most of the major hospitals. We have trained neuro-intensivists, neuro-interventionalists who are trained to treat these patients with acute stroke if they require any intervention, which I will tell you about in my subsequent slide. We have finances now because patients can afford the treatment. What happens is the public awareness and the time. So this is what is lacking, and this is, I hope with this talk, I'm able to spread the awareness that we need to reach to the hospital on time if somebody has an acute stroke. Of course, there are limitations. There is traffic jam. Even if there is an ambulance, people do not give way. We do not have an air ambulance, but still we are doing a very good job. There was a young patient, 45 years old, who was thrombolized. Who was given the clot buster medication. He worked in the MTNL office, which is just next to Hiranandani Hospital. Brought within half an hour of his symptoms, he was completely not moving his right arm, right leg, and he was not able to talk at all. He was completely confused. So, because he came within half an hour, he received the clot buster medication. Within 2 hours, this man, can you imagine? This man started talking and walking, and he went back home walking the next day itself. So much of work hours, so much of disability can be prevented and saved just by creating public awareness, just by reaching the hospital on time, so that we could prevent these patients from getting a disability in the future. So, a brief discussion on the types of strokes. There are two types of strokes. When we talk about a blood vessel blockage, this is the blood vessel that goes to the brain. We see this clot here, which is blocking the blood vessel to the brain. This type of stroke cuts off the blood supply to this part of the brain. These are called as ischemic strokes, and this is where the clot buster medication helps to dissolve the blood clot, and the blood flow is established, and that's why the patient can start walking again immediately or with early, depending upon what is the severity of the stroke. So this is what is very helpful. These type of patients, we can offer the TPA or the medicine. Now, what happens with the other group of patients? We call this in the layman's term as the brain hemorrhage or hemorrhagic stroke. What does that mean? So let's look at this diagram here. These are the blood vessels that are going to the brain. Now, because of a high blood pressure, the smaller blood vessels in the brain cannot withstand the blood pressure for a long time, and then they burst open or they rupture. So there is bleeding in the brain. Now, if we find bleeding in the brain or on the CT or the MRI, then these type of strokes are not the type of strokes that we treat with the clot buster medication, because the side effect of the clot buster medication, it dissolves this blood clot. It increases the risk of bleeding to a very small amount. We take that risk because these patients will improve eventually. So what we do by doing an MRI or CT is to rule out or look out for the bleeding in the brain. If there is no bleeding, we go ahead with this medication in order to improve these patients. Now, what is a TIA? If some of you have heard the term TIA, it is a mini stroke. So when we say a mini stroke, These patients may have weakness or difficulty speaking, or a face twisted to one side, and these symptoms could last for less than 24 hours or for a few hours only. And these patients may not require this medication. But how will we decide if this is a mini stroke or a major stroke? Well, it's the neurologist who will be able to decide. So if any of you are seeing these symptoms, please come to the emergency and let the neurologist decide whether it is a mini stroke or a major stroke, and they can take appropriate measures. As far as prevention of stroke, is the treatment or the prevention different from an actual stroke? No, it is not the same. Even if those patients have had a mini stroke, the implications are the same as a major stroke as far as prevention and the future risk of a recurrent or another stroke. So, how do you spot a stroke? Remember, stroke is a medical emergency, so we have to act fast. FAST. Fast is face drooping to one side. A stands for arm weakness. S stands for difficulty speaking. So the speech could be slurred in the sense I am not able to speak. So it could be a slurring of speech, or some patients may have difficulty understanding what you're saying. Some patients could just be unconscious, but these are the very common signs of stroke. Now, when I say arm weakness, it's basically one-sided weakness. It could be the arm or the leg weakness on one side. And T is time is brain. Now, some patients may also have numbness. So if somebody asked me if numbness is a symptom of stroke, yes, numbness on one side, which starts suddenly, could be a symptom of stroke. So these are some of the symptoms that help us identify early signs or symptoms of stroke. There is a Hindi version as well. Bachao, बाजू कमजोर हो जाना is ब, चेहरा टेढ़ा हो जाना, आवाज थरथराना या बोल न पाना, और वक्त अब नहीं गवाना है, तुरंत अस्पताल पहुंच जाना है. Because we have only 4.5 hours. See, when the patient comes to the hospital, let's see what he goes through in the subsequent slides. So B fast is more precise because B stands for balance and E is eyes. So sudden change in vision or loss of vision. Just last week, I had a patient who came to the emergency. He was COVID positive and he had lost his vision, could not see anything at all since the morning. The family was suspicious for something abnormal and they got him to the hospital. So the only problem he had was he was just not able to see. So sudden loss of vision could be a sign of stroke. So the importance here is sudden onset of symptoms. It's a split second. So split second is when these symptoms start. So be fast if you have a sudden onset of symptoms because time is ticking, time is brain. So what happens when you come to the emergency? The ambulance reaches the emergency. We have 60 minutes here. Why 60 minutes? Because when you come to the hospital, the emergency team sees you first. Then the neurologist is called if a stroke is suspected by the emergency team. After the neurologist sees the patient, or sometimes you don't wait for the neurologist to see the patient, the emergency physician has seen the patient. He's taken straight to the radiology department for an MRI or a CT scan, and the decision is made whether to give the injection or not. So all this takes time. Now, so if you look at the time that you have, we have 4.5 hours, out of which this procedure itself of evaluating the patient takes about 1 hour at least in the hospital. So how much time do we have? We have 3.5 hours only. So what happens if we reach late? So this is the other procedure which is available, like you have angioplasty for the heart. If there is a heart attack, similarly, we have angioplasty for the brain. So if you look at these blood vessels of the brain, what you're seeing here, see, this is the right side and this is the left side. You are seeing this blood vessel on the left side of the brain. On the right side, there is no blood vessel which is seen. There is a complete blockage here. So if this patient reaches to the hospital after 4 hours, let's say, we cannot offer him this medication, but yes, can we not offer him any treatment? We can offer him a procedure which is called as angioplasty. So what they do is, I can show you the video at the end of the presentation. So what they do is we call in the interventional neurologist or an interventional radiologist who does the same procedure like angioplasty for the heart. He takes the guide wire up to these blood vessels of the brain and he removes the blood clot which is over here so that the blood flow to this part can be established. This treatment can be offered to the patients up to 24 hours of the onset of symptoms. So that is the procedure which still can be offered. Actually, this slide had the video. I will show it to you at the end of the presentation. We now have mobile stroke units in the US. This is going to come to India soon, bringing the hospital to the patient. That means in the ambulance itself, we have a CT scanner machine. We have the facility to scan if there is a bleeding to in the brain. If no bleeding, we can start the clot buster medication in the ambulance itself. So that is going to save time and start the treatment earlier in these patients. So which will help our patients a lot in the long run. This is our team at Hiranandani Hospital. This is my emergency physicians, Dr. Ram, Dr. Saurabh, and these are my technicians, radiology department. So this is where we are evaluating the patients when there is an acute stroke. Everybody is on their toes. All these three departments, emergency, radiology, and the neurology team. Here we are discussing with the patients outside, the relatives outside, telling them about the clot buster medication. So while the patient is in the MRI, getting his MRI outside, we are taking the appropriate consent, and so that as soon as the MRI is done, time is not wasted and we can start the patient on the clot buster medication as early as possible. So the teamwork has helped us. We have had only 30 minutes instead of the 60 minutes indicated by the US American Stroke Association. But in our hospital, we have achieved this time to 30 minutes. Within 30 minutes of the patient coming to the emergency, we have offered these patients, we have started the patients on the clot buster medication. So, and we have had excellent results with acute stroke. So what is the outcome when promptly administered the clot buster medication? Treatment of stroke can save lives and reduce the long-term effects of stroke. So we all want to be standing and walking. We don't want to be wheelchair dependent if we have a stroke, right? So there are 10% of stroke survivors recover almost completely. It's still a small number. See, everybody is not the same, but we can have the chance to offer them the best treatment. Now, can we prevent a stroke? That's the main question that I'm sure all of us have in this team here. Yes, so we need to identify what causes a stroke. So by controlling the risk factors that cause the stroke, we can prevent a stroke. The first and foremost is diabetes. High blood sugar can cause a stroke. High blood pressure can cause a stroke. So taking care of our blood sugar and blood pressure can prevent a stroke. Smoking. Patients will ask me, ma'am, एक cigarette पी लेता, what's the harm? Of course not. We have had young strokes who are coming in now, who are in their late 20s or even early 30s, who just have smoking as the only risk factor, and they have had a major blockage in the blood vessel and a major stroke, major disability, a loss of young patients with good working hours. It's the earning group, right? It's the young patients who are losing these important years or important months in their lifetime. So we need to focus on these preventive aspects. Now, the other thing which this picture shows is in the elderly patients. Sometimes what we see is atrial fibrillation. What that means is the blood vessels go from the heart to the brain, correct? So if there is a blood clot that forms in the heart, this can happen when the heart rate, let's say the heart misbehaves. See, all the organs are aging. In the elderly patients, this is a very common cause of stroke, that the heart rate doesn't beat, the heart doesn't beat regularly, it beats irregular, and that is called as atrial fibrillation. So for all patients with acute stroke, we do an ECG and an echocardiogram to look for these conditions. Sometimes they require heart monitoring for a longer time, for even days together, to see if we can pick out this condition, because this can be treatable and we can prevent another future stroke in these patients. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle, walking and eating a healthy food, balanced food, is going to go a long way in preventing stroke. So there are various risk factors which we cannot change, like growing age, gender. Males have a little higher risk of stroke as compared to females, but after menopause, both males and females have an equal risk. Family history of a stroke, you have a high risk of another stroke. Previous stroke, yes, you will have a high risk of another stroke. We cannot change this, but there are a lot of factors that we can change. We have spoken about these factors: controlling high blood pressure, cholesterol, controlling diabetes, heart problems, obesity, excessive alcohol use, physical inactivity, smoking, and stress. Stress is a major factor that all of us are going through in the current times. Work stress all around us. Now we are going through the pandemic stress. So we need to have a healthy lifestyle, which will help in overall having a good health, controlling the risk factors like high blood pressure and diabetes as well, and that can help prevent the risk of another stroke. So the message to all of you is stroke is a medical emergency. We have to be fast, balance eyes, face, arm, and speech. Time is brain. We are here for you as a team. We are providing you multidisciplinary care. I think that's about it.
Thank you, Doctor. What we can do is we can put the video that you have on the site later on Monday, when we put the entire recording, because quite a few questions have come in.
Okay.
We could get to that. But thanks a lot. I think the presentation was excellent. You have been as detailed as possible, and most of the questions have been answered. So,
sorry, I was trying to show you something, but no worries. So before we go to the questions, I wanted to share a little bit about, I think my slide is not here, a little bit about what I do as a neuromuscular specialist, because some of you may be wondering, what is a neuromuscular specialist? So I'm a neurologist. I specialize in taking care of nerve and muscle related diseases. The common problems are neuropathies, where somebody could have tingling or pins and needles like sensation in the feet. ALS is one of the diseases. Myasthenia, these are rare diseases. Muscle diseases or myopathies. So if any of you have any of these problems, I'm most welcome. You're most welcome. I can help you out in these diseases as well.
So thank you very much, Dr. Damne. Excellent and very detailed presentation. So we have a question, and There are quite a few questions. There is one question which has come in uh, from a regular person at our webinars, Dr. Ravindranath has said, and you've answered that question actually, as to if one has a stroke, what are the symptoms?
Yeah.
So, and he is 73 years old. So, is there anything specific that senior citizens should be looking at?
So I have covered everything. I think those are the very common symptoms of stroke.
Right.
Face, it's one-sided. When somebody has a stroke, typically it's one-sided. Face, arm and leg weakness that happens at like it's a split second. So what I tell patients is, sometimes patients tell me, it's like I've been having weakness for a few months or a few days. That probably is not a stroke. So a typical patient will tell you, I was sitting at the coffee table and suddenly my hand dropped, or suddenly I dropped the pen from my hand. So these are the suddenness in the symptoms which are suggestive of a stroke, which can alert somebody with a stroke, and they can come to the hospital. If you're in doubt, just come to the emergency or ring a bell and the physician will answer you. Somebody can help you out.
We have a question from Mr. Shivanand Chandola, and it's in Hindi, so I'll go a little slow. डॉक्टर साहब नमस्कार, मैं काफी समय से हाथों में कपकपी, बाई तरफ नसों में खिंचाव और पैरों के तलवों पे झंझनाहट, भारीपन गर्म रहते हैं, जिसके कारण मैं काफी परेशान रहता हूँ। डॉक्टर साहब, मेरा शुगर फास्टिंग 145 है, उम्र है 77 इयर्स और कुछ वर्ष पूर्व न्यूरोबिन के इंजेक्शन लगवाए थे। उस जगह हिप्स में कई बार काफी दर्द होता है। Can you give him some advice?
I think we have a lot of symptoms here, but मुझे लगता है कि आपको न्यूरोलॉजिस्ट को दिखाना पड़ेगा एक बार, ताकि डिटेल्ड असेसमेंट कर सकते हैं। शॉर्टली व्हाट आई कैन टेल यू इज, डायबिटीज की वजह से आपको नसों में तकलीफ हो रही है शायद, तो न्यूरोबियन probably helped you. But in addition, there could be some other medications that we can offer. तो आप एक बार आपके न्यूरोलॉजिस्ट पास में अगर कोई न्यूरोलॉजिस्ट है या फिजिशियन है, तो आप उनका सलाह लेके अप्रोप्रिएट ट्रीटमेंट स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं. I think he will have to be seen because these are a lot of symptoms. So it will be difficult for me to tell you offhand without seeing somebody. Yeah.
Absolutely. We have a question from Mr. Jitendra Vora. He says that he has had a bypass surgery. He is 72 years old. Can he get a stroke?
So the answer to your question is yes, because we have risk factors. Bypass surgery is similar to a heart attack, correct? It is basically a heart attack. So anybody who has had a problem with blockage to the blood vessels of the heart, the risk factors are probably the same. That is diabetes, probably you've had hypertension. So we call these together as cardiovascular risk factors. So these patients do have a risk for a stroke as well.
Thank you. We have a question from Mr. Pardasani, Mr. D.A. Pardasani. He says, in my right hand, little finger and one next to it is stiff. My neurologist told me that ulnar nerve is compressed. Is there
Ulnar nerve, yeah, ulnar nerve.
Is there a non-surgical remedy, physiotherapy or medicines?
Yeah, so that is my area of specialty, and I'm happy to answer the question for you, no problem. So basically, ulnar nerve problems, this nerve is the funny bone. So over here is where the nerve gets pinched. So what you can start doing is, there are splints which are available. You can buy an elbow splint if there is no other cause for your ulnar nerve compression. then these problems can be just solved by simply wearing a splint and not pressing your hand down and holding the phone like this for hours together. If you're doing that, please do not do that, because that can compress or press the bone at the elbow, the nerve at the against the bone, the elbow over here, and that can aggravate the problems. So that is one thing that we can avoid.
All right. We have a question from Mr. Bhupendra Shah. It says, I have dead nerves in both the feet, due to which I have lost sense and unable to stand at one place for long without support. I have diabetes. What is the solution?
Again, I think we need to see a neurologist. This looks like you have neuropathy because of diabetes. The treatment is going to be control of diabetes and physiotherapy, but we need to see if there is any other problem that could be affecting the nerves, which could be treatable. So we need a thorough evaluation in such patients.
We have a question from Aditya Torkar, who says, can physiotherapy help a patient, female age 74, who has suffered a paralytic stroke? Her left side is paralyzed and pains on touch. Her CT brain shows cerebral atrophy and encephalomalacia
Encephalomalacia, yeah.
and lacunar infarcts.
Yes, absolutely. So that's what is the role of physiotherapist and rehabilitation. So our role comes when a patient has a stroke acutely and they come to the hospital. Once the patient is stabilized and is discharged, if they have weakness which has not been reversed by the appropriate treatment, then what is that we can do to improve these patients' weakness is what the physiotherapist does, and they do these exercises. So what happens is, patients may feel, just exercise kar rahe, but how are things improving? But actually, that's how things will improve. Our brain learns to form new networks. It's like an electrical wiring. It's new circuitry is being developed, new networks are being formed. It's a process of slow repair and slow regeneration or growth, and these patients will improve if they get physiotherapy. अगर फिजियोथेरेपी नहीं करेंगे तो your muscles will be become very stiff, and these patients will take a very long time to improve and get better. So every patient with stroke, we start them on early physiotherapy right from even ICU. Once the blood pressure, once the parameters are stable, physiotherapist comes in the ICU and they start, and then they have a role here in long-term rehabilitation for these patients, even sometimes for months or years together if the weakness is quite severe.
We have a question from Mr. Chris Ramchandran. Says, Doctor, the skin on my upper underarm is very sensitive to touch for the last 3-4 days. There is no visible rash or redness or anything that could be causing this. Should I see a dermatologist, a GP, or a neurophysician? By upper underarm, I mean below the biceps.
I guess let's start with seeing a physician first, and then let him decide where he refers to you. But let the physician see you first.
All right. We have a question from Purna Rao, who says, I had a TIA in 2000 and then was admitted to Nanavati Hospital for a thorough checkup. No blockages were found, and I'm not having any more trouble as I'm under Dr. Ganesh Kumar, cardiologist at Hiranandani Hospital for the last 15 years. In 2006, I had an angioplasty, but I'm quite fine now. Question is there any special precaution to take now 20 years later that I don't get a stroke?
Yeah, so the same precautions that we discussed before, taking care of your risk factors. So prevention, controlling your diabetes, if you have risk factors such as diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, making sure that you are taking your medications, because I'm sure you're on aspirin or a blood thinner. So making sure that you do not miss even a single dose of your blood thinner medication is very important, because we have had patients a single dose miss kiya and then they've come up with a stroke. So that is also possible. So the message is, please take your medications. If you have had even a TIA or a stroke in the remote past 15-20 years ago, still the risk of another stroke is not nullified. There is still a risk of stroke. So do not stop aspirin, do not stop your cholesterol medication or any other medication before consulting with your neurologist, or if you had a heart attack without consulting your cardiologist. I think you should not stop any of the medications.
Somebody who asked a question earlier, he asks, I'm 73, what should be my sugar? That is Mr. Jitendra Vora, fasting and after 2 hours of lunch.
What should be the values?
Yeah, sugar values, sugar levels.
So there are lab cutoffs. See, that's a very good question, because sometimes patients will tell you, my fasting sugar is good, मेरा fasting अच्छा है, BP भी अच्छा है, 2 hours fast, 2 hours का blood sugar is also good. So, but when you check their HbA1c, see, what's important is not one time sugar. One time sugar may be normal, but next day he goes and eats a laddu or some sweets, then your sugar is going to go up, right? So what's important is what we check, HbA1c, which gives us an estimate of diabetes for the 3 months. So it's a control over the 3 months before you're checking the HbA1c. That is a good estimate of your diabetes. So my HbA1c target is less than 6.4. That's what we all look at, rather than just a random value of fasting blood sugar and a postprandial. Of course, these are important. Fasting less than 900 is a decent value, and postprandial, I think, less than 140 is a decent value. But I mean, there are lab values which vary a little from lab to lab. But what we check as neurologists, cardiologists, and diabetologists is HbA1c less than 6.4 is when you do not have diabetes. A decent control is less than 7%.
There's a question from Surekha Kamath, who says, on noticing pre-Parkinson's symptoms in a person, what care can he or she take over the years to avoid a deterioration of his or her condition in addition to the regular dose of medicines? Is there a need to avoid hectic schedules and hectic activities?
Yeah, I think you had shared that question with me. So Parkinson's, we should remember, is a progressive disease. We do not have medications which will reverse the disease process. So it is a symptomatic control. When I say symptomatic control, what the medicines are doing is slowing down the disease process. Now, what we as caregivers can offer is, these patients have an increased risk of falls. Parkinson's is a disease of the elderly patients, 60, 65 plus, and the bones already start getting weaker at this time. So these patients, we should make sure that apart from the medications that we give to them, fall precautions and fall preventions is a major role here that we can offer to these patients as caregivers. So making sure the bathroom is not wet, we have proper railings if they have imbalance while walking. Those railings can be installed in the houses. If the patient requires a walking stick, please go ahead and use it. Do not be shy to use a walker or a walking stick, because what's more important and what's more useful is maintaining balance while walking. That's going to be very important to prevent falls. And that's, I think, very important.
Okay, we have so many questions coming in. I'm not very sure whether we'll be able to address them all, but we had a question from an anonymous attendee who says, My wife loses her balance 2-3 times a day. She's 61. How do I prevent this? She's taking Lonazep, which helps temporarily, but what
I
do we
think
do?
he needs to see a neurologist. It's imbalance is a very vague, in the sense not vague. There are a lot of different differentials for imbalance on walking. So we need a thorough assessment for such patients. Yeah.
We have a question from another anonymous attendee who says, I'm a 67-year-old lady. I have nerve pain in legs and I have diabetes. What should I do?
Yeah, so diabetes, nerve pain and diabetes control. One, sometimes this pain is difficult to treat despite an extensively good diabetes control. So in such patients, we put them on neuropathic pain medications. So your neurologist can help you titrate these medications.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dhamne, for being here. And thank you very much to Dr. Chatterjee at the hospital for helping have you here. So once again, to all our viewers here, thank you for being there. We are going to be back with Health Live at Seniors Today again next Saturday at 5 p.m. Thank you very much, Dr. Dhamne. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much. So I have started the nerve and muscle clinic as well at the hospital.
Right.
And I work for the ALS support group as well.
That's right.
So I can send you the information for that as well.
Yeah.
So
We'll be happy to
yeah.
carry it with the takeaways.
Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.